conquer the night. If I can make it, if I try to draw the red light, I could run through the fire, I could conquer the night. If I can make it, if I try to draw the red
Thinking that I could have done something, but now I'm left with an empty heart. No making amends, no waking up beside you and holding you till we forget it all. How could I know there was no second chances? Like dominoes, my life got really scattered. You couldn't keep the door shut, and now the frostbite's creeping in. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here. So come home, why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. Wizard of Oz can't undo what I've done. Completely out of luck this time. I'm stuck in reverse. I gotta get away now, but I can't seem to take the lead. Oh baby, how could Why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. It got me stone cold. You got me stone
like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin takes me back to the time met you on a Friday, halfway out at the door of the club, playing soul on the weekends. Stayed in bed till Wednesday. Fell in love with you right there and then. I was young, couldn't see that. Couldn't see that. Leather jacket though it's too cold. Saw your face in the crowd and I think we locked eyes. Her she's perfect, yeah, she's beautiful. Never thought you'd be here, it took me by surprise when I met you in the doorway. And a friend of a friend, never thought I would see you this soon, but hope she really loves you. 'Cause I swear you deserve everything. Wish that I knew that sooner. We got sober, it was over, but I told you I'd do.
Welcome everyone to the third installation of season 2 of Industry Insights. We've had a great week so far and so much more to come. But moving on today, we have again Santa joining us on the desk alongside Ollie Hatton and AceOfPyrite. Welcome, guys.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
So yeah, I mean, kind of kicking off, especially with we ask the same thing every time. This question goes to both of you: of how did you really get started into esports, and how did you really dive into Siege as well?
I mean, it's a good question, isn't it, Tim? Because we came
very
up,
good, really. Yeah.
we came up to get. I think. Well, the question's all right. Like, we can't give too much props to the question, but the answer's going to be fantastic because the reality is that we came in together. Essentially, we came up through the ranks, pretty much as a duo.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, looking slightly before that and getting into Siege, to be honest, esports, Ollie introduced me to esports. It wasn't something that I'd been massively involved in. I was aware of it. Obviously, I've been a big gamer all my life, but not so much on the competitive side, whereas Ollie had been involved a little bit with like Black Ops and Call of Duty side of stuff, and that's how we started sort of playing together, really. And he said, I think you might enjoy Search and Destroy, and it went on from there, really. We started watching Get Flanked videos, got into Siege via that, and then as soon as we both touched it, it was just sort of, a runaway train from that point, to be honest.
The sort of coming in together then, do you think that's made things easier, or?
I think it certainly gave us an advantage at the start because it wasn't as much as we were trying to sort of crack this nut on our own. We had a very good approach to it because we could bounce ideas off each other. We could speak to each other about certain things. There's a certain amount of pulling power that you have when there's a duo going for things, because it's like that duo, that package, those two people solve the whole problem. And then on the flip side of it, the converse is that there's then difficulties that arise throughout it, and it's competitive, and there's sometimes only one spot and there's two of you. So there's pros and cons to both sides, I think. But I think certainly in the early stages, there's an advantage to going at it together. I mean, a bit of back history about me and Tim is we've known each other for like 10, 11 years now. So our relationship as friends is beyond what we've done professionally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'd completely agree, and I'd probably add a little bit to that as well, and that is that one of the big strengths we had when we were getting started was particularly in the content creation, the sort of networking area, all those sort of things were relatively new to us, to be honest. And so we could play off each other's strengths. You know, like coming into it, I had no idea about using Photoshop, about editing a video, that sort of stuff. Whereas Ollie was and is really good with that stuff, so was able to teach me. And then, you know, I sort of went down the road of sending the emails out and getting us through the door sometimes, and like getting those opportunities. And Ollie's picked up on that side, and so having those sort of complementary strengths really did as well. And like you said, one of the biggest you know, things for me, Ollie's mentioned there, was just being able to bounce ideas off each other, being able to, you know, work with each other. We used to have a running joke. It hasn't happened for a while, but we used to have the late night McDonald's debrief. You know, something crazy had happened. We'd get this big opportunity, and then we'd end up in a McDonald's at midnight, just sat there and throw down a little bit of food and just talk it through. And having that person that you respect, you know, that you can trust with their opinion and with their input has been absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, and I mean, it's especially, you know, from where you guys came from as well, working very closely. I mean, that must have been a great benefit, you know, not to really, like you said, not going alone, and really having each other there was obviously just a massive stepping stone. Sorry if I'm caught a little bit off guard. You know, the thing we were talking about before we started about the map change has actually just officially been announced.
Oh.
So sorry if I'm quite a little bit off guard there, but working on it, especially this is more directed toward Ace. This is from our community of what is it like? What is it like casting two different regions, and what are the kind of main differences between the two?
Well, it's a great question, is that actually, because you can look at it two different ways. And I think the way that I sort of handled it going into LATAM was that Siege is Siege. You know, I'm casting Siege. I know the game inside and out, but yes, there is an element that I need to sort of figure this out again, because there are different styles of play. But to be honest, that comes pretty quickly, because, for example, I don't, you know, pick a map, any map. You go onto Clubhouse. I watch a couple of Brazilian teams play, so you know, I just do that before the season starts. I go in, I make sure I'm watching every team, and I'm picking out a few of their games, particularly those high frequency maps. And I look at it, and I watch CCTV and Cash once or twice, and I go, all right, okay, that's what they're doing different. And you can pick that out pretty quickly. I think some of the difficulty, or a lot of the work, needs to go into the stories, the backgrounds of players, because everybody, LATAM's a great example, to be fair, because everybody, if I say Palu, if I say Nesk, Sexy Kit, you know, we all know the Liquid guys, we all know Cameraman, we all know, you know, the big players there from LATAM. But if I come in and start saying, what about Novice? What about Alamau? Who does Alamau play? What style does he play? And that's the big thing, because as a caster going into that, I've got to have them answers. You know, I've got to say, look, this is what we're expecting. That's what I'm there to do, because the person watching at home maybe doesn't know that. So for me, a lot of rich time went into that element, you know, talking to the coaches or players, trolling through Liquipedia, looking at those old VODs and breaking down, right, that's his style of play, that's their style of play, and, you know, making all those notes and sort of catching up on 2 years of history of, you know, where's the beef between the players, who's, you know, had big games before, who's had those big moments, and, you know, who's maybe fallen at the hurdle, and understanding those backgrounds of teams so that you can give some perspective this time around.
Yeah. So you mentioned as well, Ollie started off in Black Ops, is that right?
Yeah, so only very like game battles, pretty casual sort of stuff. Like to throw it all the way back.
Man's a beast on the sticks. Don't let him down, player.
Give me a set of sticks and I'm all over it. To throw it all the way back, my gamer tag, my in-game name, XRTROIKA, is the Troika is a gun inside of Gears of War. Now, that was Gears of War 1. That was on the 360 back in the day. XR is Xbox Revenge. That was a clan that I was in. And that's, I mean, you laugh, but these things stick. Like, you can't choose what username you make when you're like 13 years old. You want to be careful with that sort of stuff. It's a big responsibility. You never know where you might be headed, but that's where it all came from. So I've got like a little bit of a background in sort of casual, competitive, you know, ness, if you will, over on the Xbox side of things. The thing that dragged me over to the PlayStation was Tim, because Tim and his friends had Star Wars Battlefront, I think it's
The first
called.
one, yeah.
It's like the Battlefield version of Star Wars,
Mhm.
and we wanted to play it together. I'd literally just bought Xbox One. I went to game, traded it in. I walked out with the PlayStation 4, which hasn't been on in about 3 years, but that's what started everything. And then we got into, I think the Call of Duty that came out that year would have been Infinite Warfare,
Yeah.
which was just, as everyone knows, pretty terrible. So that's really where all that sort of spawned, because it was due to COD being rubbish that we actually ended up coming over to Siege, because previous to that it had been Black Ops 3, which is one of the greatest Call of Duties of all time, and I'd smashed it, played a few game battles, nothing serious, but grinded out all the camos, really enjoyed myself, and just wanted friends to play with that I knew were like-minded, good, and we could have a good laugh with it. So that's really, you know, the sort of extent of my background, if you will, in any sort of game. It goes as far as a game battles ladder, I'm afraid.
So moving over as well to Siege and doing your sort of small time casting when you first started off, do you ever expect to become as big as you have now, or was it always of a small hobby?
Not for a second.
It was strange. Like we've tweeted the picture on occasion, and the casting thing all sort of happened by chance. The only reason that Enough Is Enough was started was because Tim needed to get his head around the maps, as did I, of Siege. So he started recording the maps on PlayStation Share for him to watch back over, and as he was doing it, he'd audio it, he'd voice over it, because at the bottom right and next to the bottom left near the compass, it'd be like, this is games room, this is kitchen, all this sort of stuff. First one you did was on House back in the day.
House, yeah.
And we looked at it, we went onto YouTube, we didn't see anything similar that was condensed. You know, we had like a specific, like, these were condensed videos. It was very targeted. You didn't need to spend 20 minutes watching one video. It was like 3 minutes. You could watch it 2 times and you'd know it. We didn't see anything of the like. So that's where Enough Is Enough was started. From Tim's need of knowledge, and I could facilitate in the editing side of things. And then it sort of snowballed on from there. So the casting wasn't even like a consideration until we got into Get Flank's Discord.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't even a thought at the beginning,
No.
really. Like you say, it was all about knowledge. But what the thing is, there's a lesson to be learned. You know, I'm sort of very conscious, obviously, of the aim of the stream as well, and that insight and what people can take away from it. And that is, take any opportunity that's there to do something, anything, because you don't know what's next. You don't know what it's going to lead to. So if you do something and it's not the thing for you, so don't do it again. That's fine. You know, move on, try something else. That's absolutely fine. Try as many things as you can and pick up those experiences, because the experience I got from that was some awesome Photoshop skills. They are very questionable at best, but I know how to use it now. And you know, I picked up things that I never knew about audio and editing and things like that, but it moved on, and there was a friendly tournament in a Discord, and basically the prevailing opinion was, well, you guys have got the YouTube channel, you've got good map and game knowledge because you've been doing these breakdowns, you've been doing like vertical attack guides and, you know, that sort of stuff. So you've got the knowledge. So do you fancy a crack at it? It's just like, it was as much us saying we'll have a do as being asked, and we were just like, it's a friendly tournament, there's an opportunity. I think it might actually have been, Ollie, a large part of it was because the friendly tournament was it was all NA based players, so
we couldn't play
because we were going to be like 150, 160 ping, or actually about 190 back in the day, because it was before, you know, they made the alteration thing where
on PlayStation
it dropped the values. So yeah, it was just a way of getting involved for us. We were like, well, we can't do that, but casting it should be fine. We didn't even stream it live because we didn't know how to stream something at the time, realistically, with everything else that was going on, is the reality. So we just, we recorded it. We recorded the game. We cast it live, but recorded the audio, and then Ollie edited it and pieced it together afterwards. And I've not listened to it in a long time. I doubt it's that great, but it was entered. You know, we found this thing that we were passionate about, and we got a good bit of feedback. People enjoyed it, and it then just went from there. We got hold of it, and that's the other piece of advice. There is, we enjoyed it, that 10 minutes, that hour of doing it, so we got hold of it. And you know, things fell into place a little bit. I saw a tweet. I might never have seen it, but I saw a tweet that was a console league looking for casters. Yeah, all right, we'll have a go at that. That didn't work out as it was. There was, you know, something went on with the league that it broke down. But on the back of that, I got into a conversation with Matt Andrews, who obviously is well known in the Siege community for his hosting work. And I got involved in a conversation with Matt, and he put me in touch with IEG at the time, which I think has become ESA. I sort of lose track a little bit, but I think it's potentially morphed it. I apologise if not, but it was IEG at the time. So we got involved there and we did a couple of casting gigs there, but we're still trying to scuff it together at this point. Like, we've no idea.
I'm driving to Tim's house to cast.
From the same room,
honestly,
we didn't know how else to do it.
Hand on heart. I'm jumping on the motorway. I'm driving 20 minutes down the road to see Tim, to jump into his spare bedroom, and we're trying to figure out. No, I'm not. We're trying to figure out sitting in the same room with mics, and like we're like facing them this way and facing them that way, and like trying to make it all work, because that was how we knew how are two people meant to watch one feed. Like, that is just impossible to us. We can't do anything. How is Tim meant to observe this and I'm meant to cast it from my house? I've got to be sat next to him looking over his shoulder. That was the level of, like, hustle that we were on.
That is the reality of where we started. And, you know, there's a message there of if we can make it to the tournaments that we have, and we've learned along the way, we've picked up, we've worked hard, and, you know, the one piece of advice that I think is, or one of the pieces of advice that's really stuck with me and Ollie along the way, and that is just always deliver. Always make sure that you deliver. When you get that opportunity, when somebody says yes and they trust you with whatever league, whatever match, whatever tournament it might be, whether it's production, whether it's casting, you know, whatever it might be, make sure that you position yourself. You know, mistakes happen. They always will, and that's fine. But make sure you have done everything you can beforehand to be prepared to walk in and to do the best job that you can do to deliver on the day. And, you know, you never know what opportunity is going to come next. You know, it's setting out to cast Tier 1 or setting out to cast SI or anything else. It's not something you can do realistically. You know, you can't think about up here when you're starting. You know, you've just got to do the best you can do. Treat that as your. That's the other thing. I think, you know, me and Ollie have always said to it. You know, every tournament we've done, when we got the first live final for the Premiership, it was, this is an FA Cup final to us. This is a cup final day. This could be the biggest it ever gets, and you know what? We're going to turn up and we're going to enjoy it. And that, I think, has come across. And, you know, it's never really thinking about that next opportunity. Hopefully that comes along on the back of this one, you know. But no, we never dreamed of where we've ended up. No.
And it's a great little story, especially like you said, from where you guys came from. Is there? I'm gonna split this up into two, and kind of what's your best moment or your best story, your kind of most enjoyable moment individually, and then your favorite moment with together in esports.
I'll let you go.
I mean, a lot of the individual ones will have been together because we've been to a lot of places, which we've been fortunate to do. I think if we're going to go strictly down the individual route, I know Tim's got SI and stuff that he can talk about. I think for me, it was probably doing Poland when I went out to do the qualifiers.
You smashed that job as well. You could tell at the time like, how excited you were. You did such a good job of it.
It came at a really early time as well. I was looking back over some invoices, and I was looking at, you know, the work that I'd done, the paid work that I'd done in the run up to Poland, and it was slim. It was few and far between. There weren't very many jobs because there was a lot of free stuff off the back of it. I think one that we've kind of omitted in the sort of early stages is CCS. They were massive. That was something as well that we got through Sith Lord Lurg. You'll find him on Twitter. Golden chap, really nice guy. He put us in touch with Rob Walker, and that gave us CCS, which was a huge part of the whole thing. So a lot of the early stuff that I did was obviously, as it usually is, like unpaid. But Poland for me was a big one because I remember getting to the airport, getting on the plane and thinking, I'm jumping on a plane for this game. This is the furthest I'm going to travel for a video game, and it's going to be to Poland. And that was a bit wild for me, going obviously on my own, like not bothered about that. But the reality of it was that this is pretty mental. Someone's paying for my flight to go over there to talk about it, and when you're trying to explain it to people like your gran, and you're going around, you're like, I'm going off for a few weeks, gran. Like, I'll come and see you when I get back. Oh, where are you going, love? I'm going to Poland. Well, what do you want to go there for? Well, I'm going for work. I'm going to go and cast a video game, and when that sort of sinks in, it's quite a surreal feeling.
It truly is, and I think you know, as you've said, Ollie, you know, for me as a highlight, there's the obvious, you know, invitational story, but I've told that a few times recently to the same question, so I'm conscious of not just like throwing out the same thing. You know, obviously, you know, yes, it was an amazing experience, but it's actually really interesting the point that you touch on, Ollie. I would say there's another big moment for me for the same reason, and it took me quite a bit longer really, and that was Croatia, going out to Split, and that was the first time that I'd been put on an aeroplane to go to another country to talk over the top of this game. And it is just like a real big, or it was for me, it was for Ollie, a real big mental thing of somebody wants to put me on a plane. That's the point now, you know, that's they want me there to that degree. It's not, can you drive an hour to Manchester and do this for us, you know, anymore. It's getting serious now. And so, yeah, that was one of those moments where, you know, you sort of I got to the airport, and for the job in Split, it was the OGA Pit Minor, if you remember. And I met Ferrell at the airport. I bumped into Ferrell. I was just wandering through, and he was coming the other way, and he said, oh, you know, we'll get a drink. And so we sat down, and then sort of other people started drifting in. Sternab turned up, and a couple of the other guys, and it was just bizarre. And so, yeah, a big personal highlight, really. That was a big moment.
Yeah, and
as a pair.
Yeah,
I remember one moment as a pair.
See, this is where it gets a bit like, where do we go with this? You know,
the thing is, like, genuinely, you know, it's obvious. You know, obviously we've been doing some work separately over the last sort of 6 months or so. We've had some fantastic casts together as well. Not only have we had some fantastic jobs together, you know, we've done a lot of firsts together in terms of like first LAN event and, you know, all that sort of stuff, and they've been great. We had the opportunity to go to LA as star players, and it's just, honestly, all this from buying a computer game. It's been absolutely mind-blowing. And I still don't believe it a lot of times. I still don't think I deserve it. It's still like, I just keep doing what I'm doing and I talk about the game. But I think one of the highlights has got to be, it's probably happened a few times, to be honest, over the couple of years. But one particular time that I remember, it was our first Premiership final down in Leicester. So we got put up in a hotel, which was like, what? Like, somebody's putting us up in a hotel. And the day after the finals, we got up early. I think, well, about 9 o'clock or so. We'd been out for a few drinks the night before, a little bit of an after party. We'd had a few drinks. We'd had a good time. Again, a bit crazy because like players are knocking about, and you know, like I can't remember. You know, Demo was there. And, you know, it was all just a bit crazy. So we get up the next morning and we go down to the hotel's got like a little swimming pool. So we go down there and we get in the pool. And we just sort of both sat there relaxing in this pool. And as I say, it's become a bit of a thing when we have the opportunity as it goes on the back of this, really, where I'll always look for a pool if I'm staying at a hotel. I'm like, has he got a pool? I'll take my swimming shorts. But yeah, we just sat there. And after about 10 minutes, just like looked and we're just like, this is just wild. Like, we've just got up in the morning. We're having a little swim. And this has all come from buying a game on Amazon and talking over the top of it. And for me, that memory still really, really sticks with me, even above all the other stuff we've done. Sitting in that pool and just being like, this is wild, just has always stuck with me.
Yeah, and it's something that I think Ace, you were saying, because I remember we did the EU Death Stack in the TS, and you were saying how both of you have come so far together.
Yeah.
And, you know, outside of the two of you, I mean, both of you have said some incredible names so far who have really helped you, but do you think you could really pinpoint it to, you know, one or two people who you think really had the biggest impact on your career or the biggest benefit?
I think it'd be. I think while we possibly could, I'm not sure if it'd be fair to, because
Yeah.
there's been a lot of people that have helped along the way. You know, we mentioned CCS in there. That was big for the time, because obviously I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but I think that Intero was still casting CCS when we started, or he was in that transitional period.
I don't think he was quite still casting, but he was involved around it because
It'd have been
obviously he'd come
recent,
from
hadn't it?
there. So, you know, he knows Rob, he knows Ty, and he was still very much sort of around it. But yes, moving to Pro League.
Because the chance that Rob gave us was certainly a big one to be able to expand our sort of knowledge and to expand our skill set, if you will, before then being in a position to be able to pursue, you know, more professional work or paid work, should I say. Because the knowledge is fine. Like, you can know whatever you want to know about the game, but you need to have the ability to deliver that. And that's really what I think we learned with CCS is, you know, we knew that our knowledge was good. Like, we play the game, we've made videos about the game. Like, you know, the game is it's a part of you at this point. But I think in terms of being able to deliver that knowledge, CCS was certainly a large part in that puzzle. And so yeah, Rob Walker, he was a big part of it. But there's just been so many people, you know, because you start to meet people along the way, and the same sort of faces continually pop up. And you know, I think toward Will now at Ubisoft, was at ESL. Will Atwood, big part of, you know, saying yes and picking us out for the Premiership. And if, you know, Demo for suggesting us. Like, there's so many things that really go into it. It's difficult to sort of put it on one person's shoulders, really.
It is very, and I think one of the things that, like, if I sit now and I think about all the people that I would name, it does sound a bit like you sort of sat, I'm just dropping names here. I'm just, you know, and that's really not the intention. I think, again, it comes back to another important thing to do, and that is to be active in the community. Interact with these people that you see as big names. You know, they're all people. Just speak to them, send them a message, shoot them a tweet. You know, it might be just having a bit of a joke and it opens up a conversation, or it might be a straight up tweet or a DM saying, look, I'm trying to do this. What advice can you offer me? Or, you know, and if people have the time, as long as you're polite about it, you know, don't go in with any expectations. Don't be messaging them 3 hours later saying you've not replied to me yet. You know, just give them the space. Honestly, everybody who has helped us, I would say, would do it exactly the same over again for anybody else. And Ollie touched on it there. It's not fair to name any one person, because there's been a lot of people who've put us where we are. But I think what happens is it's certain people at certain times. I think is, you know, certain people you can pick out as catalysts at certain moments. And, you know, I've already mentioned Matt, and he was the one who put us in touch with Sith and with CCS, and he's helped us on a number of occasions as Matt. So, you know, it certainly wouldn't be fair not to include him in that list. And Rob Walker, Ty, both very, very supportive along the way as well. Get Flanked, he's been, you know, a really big supporter of ours. He's shouted us out countless times, and, you know, even just things like that it's maybe not directly involved in the esports side, but it's just improving that presence, and that, you know, the fact that people have heard the name or that sort of thing can go a long way towards, yeah, this guy's recognisable, actually, let's give him a shot. And but yeah, Will, John as well.
John Blaney.
Blaney, very, very much involved in a lot of the work that we've done UK-wise, particularly the Epic Lands, the Premierships, the UKIN, along with Will and Richard over there as well. So we have had, and, you know, I'm saying up front, there's 20, 30 names plus that, you know, we haven't necessarily mentioned, but we have had a lot of support along the way that have put us where we are, and we're very grateful to every one of them, every single one.
So will you say some of the key things are that you've learned as you've sort of progressed through casting?
With regard to what? With regard to casting specifically, or like...
casting specifically, or just in general to what you both do?
I think the kind of a difficult one because there's just so much that you learn along the way about everything. You know, it really does come down to communicating with people. You know, Tim's touched on it there about not being afraid to just pop up and say hello and say, look, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I'd like to do, this is what I'd like to do for you. You know, and just to try and start that conversation. That's something that, you know, is really valuable. Just not even within casting, just within life. You know, everyone's just another person, and there's no harm in you know, politely approaching a conversation. Obviously, you know, don't be banging the door down, but there's no harm in a message here or there. So I think it's certainly been valuable from that point of view. Because it can be difficult sometimes, you know, and it isn't the easiest to sort of go and, you know, cold call someone, if you will. So I think learning the appropriateness surrounding that is quite interesting.
I think one of the key things I'd probably pick out is saying yes. Saying yes to things.
That's something else we've done, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, you know, there are times where we could have looked at something and thought that's a bit beyond our capability. We don't know how to do X, Y, or Z. You know, we've not done that before, and it's a natural human thing to be anxious or nervous about that sort of thing. And the saying that I've worked with, or that we've worked with, that has seen us pretty good, I think, is if you're not nervous, you stood on the wrong stage, and it's because you're not pushing yourself, or you don't care enough about whatever it is. It's you know, it's whatever. But the things that you really care about, or the times that you are stretching yourself, you do feel those nerves, and that's fine. Yeah. That's natural. Say yes anyway. Go and do it. You know, push through that and just go and deliver and be the best that you can be, because it will show.
It backs the earlier point of as well of making sure that you deliver, because it's all well and good saying yes to everything, but you've got to then deliver on it. So the two really do go hand in hand, because you can't say yes to things and then not follow through. And you know, it's what, if you say no, then you know, you die wondering. You never know. So they really do go hand in hand. A lot of people have like the attitude of, yep, I'll do it. Yep, I'll do it. Yep, I'll do it. Worry about it later. You know, you need to worry about it sooner rather than later, because you've still got to go out there and you've still got to deliver.
And that's it. You know, if it is something that's new to you and you get that opportunity, you know, be honest and clear about your, you know, don't say, oh yeah, I've done it, I've done all that, and you know, you're going to turn up and cause yourself a problem. Never do that. You know, be honest about your experience. But if somebody is willing then to give you that opportunity, grab it with both hands, say yes, but do everything you can to prepare for it. So if there's something about it that, you know, it's probably not so much with casting, but there are technical elements there, or something like a production role or something where you think, oh, right, okay, this is a bit new to me. What can I do to prepare for it? Can I ask somebody who's done that before? What do I need to know about it? Is there any software I need to learn about? Is there any technology that I need to learn about? You know, and let's get it done now. Let's ask those questions now. Let's have a dry run beforehand. Can I get this running on my own computer? You know, how am I going to cast this? How am I going to see this game? Can I get somebody to send me a feed now so I know what I'm doing with it? And, you know, all those sorts of things. And, you know, we're in a time at the minute where there's a lot of working from home. So there's a lot of being your own you know, audio guy, or being your own technical. You know, I'm a nightmare with buttons. I should not be given buttons to look after. And, you know, some producers I work with will tell you that. But, you know, and they do as much as they can, but ultimately sometimes the slider on my desk comes down to me. So, you know, when you're doing a transition like that and you're working in a new environment, it is about thinking, you know, right, actually, maybe I'm going to set aside half an hour to just sit down and go through all my kit and make sure I know what everything's doing, why, how. I'll speak to production, what are they expecting from me, and just make sure that you're fully prepared for that opportunity.
Yeah, as you were both saying, also, you both really did come from grassroots, especially since Siege was in its mad infancy back then. And what would you kind of say? We've already gone through, you know, the saying yes, really delivering on that as well, getting as much experience as you can. But when it really comes down to the grassroots of esports, what would you kind of say, you know, for someone starting at the bottom, trying to work their way up, or what was your experience in those grassroots?
I think it's the grassroots stuff is it tends to get like almost glorified a little bit because it's like, oh, this is grassroots esports, and you've just got to be careful what it is that people are telling you is grassroots esports. Like you really want to be making sure that you're putting your energy and your effort into the right areas. And I think that that's something that we've both, been pretty conscious to do, because as time goes on and as you continue to do things, you get busier, and you can, run the risk of spreading yourself quite thinly if you overcommit to things. There's only so many hours in a day, and Tim's putting his hand up there because he kind of likes to do this. I think it's a bit of a hobby of
I'm
his,
guilty of it.
collecting things to do, but it isn't always a bad thing as long as you can manage everything and still deliver. I think getting into grassroots, you've just got to set your sights realistic. You've got to say to yourself, look, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to be a caster? Do I want to be a producer? Do I want to be an observer? Right, where can I go and help? And just be cautious of how you try and apply that help. You've got to be courteous. You've got to go in there with realistic expectations. And I think it's a very controversial topic, and it's something that gets brought up quite a lot. But it's kind of on the, how much work do you do for free in the early stages of things? Now, we did quite a bit, but that was because that was the climate at the time, and I think that the majority of stuff that we were doing the work for weren't seeing huge returns, or if the returns were there, they were going into things like prize pool. So it wasn't as if we were, working for free and making someone a ton of money off the back of it. I think that the working for free thing, it's got to be applied really carefully. And I'm not sitting here saying that you shouldn't go and do it, but there's certainly a value to knowing your worth.
There's a line to be drawn, isn't there? It's like you say, what's the output there, in terms of that, and is it reasonable that I'm being expected, or that I'm donating my time in that way, because everything does have a value, and is it reasonable given on the sort of product? But I think the other thing that I'd say with grassroots esports particularly is it can be a great opportunity to get experience in varied fields very, very quickly, because the teams are smaller. So you turn up and you might not, you might turn up as producer, but you're actually sorting the sound, you're sorting the production, you're sorting the lighting, you're rigging up, you're getting involved in all these things that when you get onto a bigger show will be done by individual people and overseen by somebody. So, then that maybe gives you the branch to say, I really like the sound side of stuff, so I want to progress on that. So now I'm going to a production company and I'm saying, actually, I do have a little bit of experience of managing sound levels and audio equipment and stuff, because I produced this small tournament, but I had to manage all of that stuff. And so grassroots can be a fantastic opportunity to go and help out and to get involved. And I don't mean help out in a sense of whether it's paid or not. That's another discussion. Help out by, I'm there, what else needs doing? There's a small team of us, who's got this covered, who's got that covered, do you want me to have a look at that? Right, I'm not an expert, but I'll have a do. Where's Google? Let's have a look. And start learning from people and getting that experience. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, especially with the both of you, it's drastically different in terms of regions that you both do, and this is more towards you, Ace, and this is kind of something that I kind of saw, especially when casting LATAM. Do you ever, if you're doing a game and then come back to, or just hopping into ranked or hopping into casual, is there anything, which you jump into is like, oh, that's not how it's meant to be done, or that's not what I've seen?
To be fair, you've had the pleasure of playing a little bit with me.
I think you're overestimating the rank that Tim sits in.
I'm
going to be straight honest with you.
I do not have the ability to bring back things that people like Palu do and apply them directly. It's very rare that I'm gonna burst into Armory on border and take down Spite, Shorked, and Royal Penguin. You know, that is rare. That is a once, and it happened. But you know, we don't need to go. We don't need to go on about it, Ollie. It's not a big thing. It's not a big thing. It did happen in the Meme Invitational. You know. 3 of them taken down within a couple of sets. Me and cameraman just duoing up, but it's not a big thing.
It's not a big deal, is it?
It's not a big deal at all. But you know, to answer the question, the work that I do on the casting side is generally very separate to the game that I play, because I'm not playing at that level, is the reality. I do take things occasionally that I think, that's a nice little angle, and I'll go and do it in ranked, and maybe I'll get a cheeky kill with it, and, you know, I'll have a little grin to myself that, you know, that's come from Sexy Cake or, from Cameraman or whoever. And, you know, yeah, that's why I would recommend that everybody watch CG Sports if you like playing the game, because there are so many things that you can pick up and learn from. But equally, there's no point me sitting in my gold low plat ranked game thinking, they're not doing this right. That setup's not how, you know, that's not how Team 1 do it. Because, you know, in reality, that's not what you're going to get.
I mean, that mainly came from, you know, especially when Skyscraper got released, of how everyone was going, oh, it's an awful map. Oh, it's awful. Oh, this, that, the other. And then how that then kind of started the whole thing on Twitter of, yeah, but no one's really seen how, if you saw how LATAM does it, if you've seen how they really adapt to the map of how they play that, you'd see it very differently.
I said, there's always things. There is always things that you can take away from Pro Siege. There's no two ways about it. But you've always got to apply it with caution as well. You know, and that can go for regional differences. It could, you know, for example, there's a great regional difference that, off the top of my head, that's really simple to explain, and that is cache and CCTV hold on Clubhouse. So the double wall, the 2 thin panels between construction and cache. In EU, in North America, is almost always reinforced, both of it. I go into LATAM and all of a sudden they're either reinforcing half of it or none of it. And I'm like, okay, this looks like, you know, they're just waiting to get run over. Julio stands behind the bomb in cache and just guns people. Just no fear. As they come in through bedroom door, they are going nowhere near that wall. Or Paulo, who plays, quite often will play a shield on cache door into construction. He'll play a deployable shield out there, reinforce logistics so he can't be attacked from that side. I've actually seen him play it with a deployable shield on both sides as well, rather than reinforcing. And he'll just sit in the middle of there and nobody is coming in there. And so, yeah, there are things like that you can take away as a little pocket strat, and you can take it, particularly if you're in a 5-man, if you're in a stack, you can take it into ranked teams and say, actually, boys, you know, why don't we try and do this? Let's just leave half of that wall open, shotgun across the middle, gives us a line of sight. And because quite often people will just try to use X-Kairos from bedroom and just do it at range to open that wall up. So now they can't get away with that the same, because I've got a line of sight onto them. So yeah, you know, you can always apply new things, and that's the beauty of Siege. You can, whether it's in LATAM, North America, Europe, whether it's just something that's never been thought of, whether it's bringing Monty and taking him down Dirt Tunnel because it's not been done for 2 years. You know what? Throw him down there. It might just work.
And this is coming from our producer of maybe asking why explain to people why the people who, you know, casters talking over the game, especially with it putting your input into that game, and why you don't necessarily need to be at the top of the leaderboard, you know, why you don't need to be a champion in order to cast Siege.
I think that mechanical skill in Siege correlating to castability is a load of rubbish. You know, it really isn't about how well you can play the game. I can make really good decisions, and one of the reasons why I get quite sort of exhausted playing Siege is because I know what happened. I know why that didn't work. And I can't do anything about that because I'm just not good enough anymore. Like, and it really is. It's a nice problem to have, because you can go in there and you can say, that didn't work because of this, and that happened because of this. So the mechanical, you know, ability for Siege is to be able to cast it. It really is a load of rubbish. I think that, as long as you've got good game knowledge and as long as you've got the knowledge of a champion or better, I think that's the key difference. I'd like to think that you'd need at least that sort of level of knowledge. And that's not to say that ranked and comp are that way comparable, but just being able to, live and breathe the game, know it inside out, know the call outs, know what's happened. It was something that you spoke about at the start, Tim, in developing the storylines and having an idea of the history of the lesser known players, not just the star-studded lineups. And that's the same with casting it. You've got to know what was the meta way of taking this site back in 2 seasons ago when this was different and that was different and this champion didn't even exist. That's the real way that you've got to go and look at it.
I think the other thing to consider there as well is what our role as a caster is, and of course we are there to shed light and explain why certain things are being done, why things have happened, what an operator is being brought for and all those sorts of things, but variety is important as well. So I'll use Kickstar as an example. He is a fantastic example of somebody who has played at the top level turning into a fantastic caster, and it's not even a question of there being room for that. He's an integral part of our esport, and he's absolutely fantastic at what he does. And I remember having a discussion, sort of a group discussion about Siege, and Kickstar was involved, and I came away feeling like I should play the tutorials again, and this is from somebody who knows the game inside and out. But Kickstar's level is just beyond that, and he brings such a unique element to the stream, but if everybody could play the game like Kickstar and everybody had that same knowledge, you'd lose your variety. It's also about being able to, having people who can have a bit of a joke and do it in the right way, or who bring excitement and hype. And it's about, and that's why Intero and Kicks work so well together. And that's why, great duos work so well together, is because you complement the things that are brought on each side. And so where playing ability comes into it, I'd agree with Ollie, largely the reason that I'm not champion or anything else is because I'm just not good enough. I'm too old. My reactions are too slow. My aim isn't good enough. That's the reality. Do I need to click on somebody's head to cast the game? No, I don't. I need to understand what's going on, and I need to entertain. That's the primary purpose that we're there, because you've got to remember as well that whilst watching a competitive stream, there are a decent number of people who are very invested in competitive Siege and are involved in the world, but there are also a lot of casual viewers as well, and a lot of new viewers who aren't that invested in the competitive game themselves. They just want to watch Siege and be entertained. They want to watch the best Siege in the world. They want to see Pengu do a sick ace clutch. They just want that enjoyment and that excitement. And we have to remember that we're talking to everybody in the audience. And, I've become reasonably well known for going in and explaining things at an absolute base level. Going in and saying, oh, you might not have seen Vigil before. Well, this is what his ability is. He can be invisible to drones. And there are undoubtedly people sat watching that stream thinking, why is he telling me this? What is he on about? But I'm not just casting for you. I'm not just casting for that one person. I'm casting for everybody. And in my mind, to a degree, nobody's more important than anybody else, but very important is the person who has just switched on Siege, who doesn't know what's going on. And if I talk to them and entertain them and engage them and explain to them, then they're going to come back next time. Whereas if they load in and I go, oh, Vigil's just done, blah, 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 and they go, who's Vigil? What? Why has he been able to do that? After 2 minutes, they're going to switch off. And so it's finding that balance. And by having a caster who can play the game fantastically well, somebody like Kickstar, you get that element and it satisfies that group of people. And then you stick in with somebody like me, or you put me with somebody, and I'm going to cover your base level, and I'm going to have I'm going to just get really hype about stuff because I just get overexcited when I'm watching Siege. It creates a good mix that satisfies, hopefully, the maximum number of people.
I think it's something that a lot of people forget is they think that whatever the number is down in the bottom left of Twitch, that they're the same people every single time. And the reality is that whatever that number is, there's a percentage of it that are constantly dropping in and dropping out. You know, people come through, people leave, people come through, people leave. It's not the same people every single week that are tuning into these things and capturing people, you know, that haven't played the game in even a season. You know, you think about not playing Siege for a season and having your head under a rock, getting your head stuck into your studies or your work or your family life, and all of a sudden you come in and you see that a Rooney's a thing. And you're like, why is he not just walking through that door? And it seems so basic for people that have got their heads in the game, but again, that's something that we benefited from. I think Belong in particular really highlighted that to us because it was grassroots, and the idea was to treat it as grassroots. It's something that we've been pretty conscious in doing over in Yukin as well, is just opening up that accessibility, and really, you know, making it so that everybody can just drop in and understand what's going on. A good baseline is whenever my dad watches it, and that's what you've kind of got to have in your mind sometimes. It's like, imagine that's your girlfriend, your dad, your mum, your gran, and they just come in and start watching this video game, and you know, they don't need to know that, you know, whatever high level things going on in the background. They just might need to know that, as you say to him, Vigil's invisible on the drone when he's got his cloak activated. It really is binary stuff.
There's a time and a place for everything. You know, that's I think the key there, and it's getting that balance because, you know, of course, we want to entertain the people who know about competitive as well. And I want to say, right, you know, I'm going to break that strat down. That was really interesting, why that failed or why it worked. And we're going to have a good couple of minutes discussion about this. And hopefully the casual people have some interest in that. Or think, all right, okay, you know, yeah, I'm engaged, I'm fine, yeah, all right, we're back into the game now. He's had his 2-minute chat about that strat. You know, and it is about finding that balance. It is.
So you've both done quite a wide variety of events as well within Siege. What would you both have to say is your favourite event or favourite moment within casting so far?
I think favourite event's quite an interesting one because it doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, the glitzy and glam hype event that you might anticipate as an answer. I've got some real fond memories, of spending weekends in Kettering.
We've had some great Epic Lands.
Doing Epic Land. You know, we've just had Epic Land gone this weekend. It's not quite grassroots, but it isn't national level. It sits in that nice sort of intermediary where, you know, you do get, you know, I mean, look at who we were casting when we had Epic Land. We were casting like the M&M boys, which went on to become Navi. You know,
never know.
And that's the wild thing to me is those kind of events, and probably that one in particular. I think off the top of my head, Epic 26 it will have been. I believe that was the first one that we did, and I'm pretty sure that's when Eminem attended and a couple of other teams. And it's wild to think of that LAN hall, and the photos came up as memories on my phone the other day because it was in and around a year ago. And you're looking through and you're thinking, you know, this is everything that I expected it to be. You know, we've got all these players that were the players that, you know, have now gone on to do bigger and better things.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some fantastic events. You know, like you say, it's not always about the biggest event is always the best. It's, you know, we've had some unbelievable opportunities, as we've said. You know, we've been able to cast at the NEC a couple of times, which I don't know if it's called something else now. I'm an old man. I grew up with it being called the NEC. I don't know if it's called something else. The arena in Birmingham, and it's don't quote me on it, but it's basically one of the biggest indoor event spaces in the UK. It's internationally recognizable, and we've been on a stage and cast there, and you know, so they all keep their place in their own way. You know, if you pin me down to one, you know, I'm obviously going to pick SI 2020. It was, you know, to turn up and do the group stages was wildly unexpected at the time when I got asked. It wasn't, as I said, I don't think it's something, or at least for me, I never focus on specifically what's next. I just want to do a good job of what I'm doing. So I'd never really dreamt of that. And as Ollie said, we'd cast the M&M boys back at Epic Land 26. I turn up and say, well, I'd really like to cover a Navi game. You know, they've got all the way here. You know, I want to see it through. And Parker says, yep, no worries. Take the opener against SSG. Me and Des, right, okay, no problem. And Rampy opens things up with an ace. You can't ask for, you can't ask for a better start to settle the nerves. And, it was an unbelievable couple of days of casting. Absolutely unreal. And both, I went to SR19 with Ollie. Well, I've been to both with Ollie. SR19 as a fan, SR20 group stages, was lucky enough to cast them, and then stayed on as a fan for the rest of SR 2020. And both of those have been great experiences. I know it's not necessarily for us in the UK a cheap thing to do, with flights and accommodation and everything. But if you do ever get the opportunity, if it ever presents itself, it's worth it, because it takes it to another level. Everybody's there. You know half of the people that's there. It's weird. You play with them online. You see them on Twitter. You interact with them. You go and grab an Airbnb with a couple of mates, and it's a brilliant experience.
Yeah, more on that, especially with being competitive with some of your favorite moments. Well, I'm gonna mix that up a little bit of saying whether it was 5 years ago or present day, favorite meta. Whether it could be from that Ying line Glaz meta, the 20-second meta utility dump, even if it's highly controversial, if you go, I really liked when there were 7 shields on the board at once.
Selfishly, white noise. Just
White
because
noise.
I distinctly remember the Scorpion being busted.
You were an absolute nightmare with it.
And I was on the sticks, so I was good.
Was it on PC as well?
Well, the
Using
Scorpion.
controller on PC?
No, I was on the PlayStation back in the day.
Yeah, the Scorpion was just so busted at launch.
Or when
it was a
impacts.
laser at distance.
Yeah.
It would always spawn peak
impacts.
of choice was double window bar where the pool table is on Clubhouse. It was his spawn peak of choice. He'd say, right, I'll get us a pick. And he did. I'll give him that. Every single time he did, you'd just hear knock on the barricade of the Scorpion, and that was it. Somebody was dead. It was way OP. Or it was in Ollie's hands anyway. To be honest, I really like where we are now. I really like what we're seeing now. We've moved out of the 20-second meta. We're seeing that utility being. I feel like we're hitting a nice. We get into a sweet spot where the utility can be cleared with a bit more advanced time. So we maybe have a minute for that final execution rather than 20 seconds. But equally, you don't want to see a meta where people are going in and planting in the first 20 seconds. You want a nice rhythm throughout the 3 minutes. You want that opportunity sometimes to go down to the wire. You want that opportunity to have them final seconds. Think of some of the plays that we've seen in those final seconds of getting diffusers down and is he going to get it? Is he not? You've not got to look for. Look at Virtue taking the toes off that. Just to prevent that. So having those moments is fantastic. But I think just a steadier pace through the round, which we're seeing at the minute, I really like where we are.
That's more than fair enough. I mean, I'm a bit off on the other end too when Liquid dominated. With the the Ying Lion meta, absolutely just ruining. I think was it Penta at the time, just shattering.
I remember just watching anybody try to roam on bank when Lion was a thing was ridiculous. I can't remember who it was, to be honest, but I just remember.
I think it might have been Sexy Cake.
I don't know if it was a Liquid game or not, but it was a game on bank. There was Jackal and Lion on the board, and they just demonstrated single-handedly why that combination was dangerous, because they just basically hit the Jackal scan, hit the Lion scan, and they'd get the ping, freeze them in play. They just timed it perfectly. They'd get the jackal, and then 2 seconds later hit the lion. So they knew exactly where somebody had been frozen in place, and we just had some great top downs of just watching them swarm in and kill. It was absolutely horrific. Honestly, I got chased down by Leon and Rampy the other week in the Invitational. I think that's what it must have felt like. Honestly, I was sweating. It's ridiculous. It was like I'd shoot one drone and another would appear from somewhere, and then I've got Leon and an Ash just gunning me. It was terrifying.
Oh, it's amazing to see, especially how we've developed. In the case of, like, let's talk like 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, SI 2018, compared to where we are now, of how different the meta is, how you wouldn't ever imagine the same operators to be taken. How people are seeing, Frost, Capcan being a very prevalent pick now, and everyone's like, wait, I remember when Frost was being picked, but with the Super 90 instead, of how much of a monster that was, and of just the comparison to how it's all changed, and especially with you guys casting through the years. And is it weird to look back on some casts and just not really get the meta of just looking at it now?
It's kind of a different game, like to some degrees, and it seems strange to say because the game's still the game, but certainly where the meta has shifted to and from over the years and over the seasons, it really does feel quite strange. There's, some things are always going to be, Ash is always going to be picked, for example. There's someone that's going to want to play her, but it is interesting seeing where the game comes and goes, and I like the fact that we're seeing Frost picks now. I think it was something that really dragged us to Siege in the first place, was the ability to play the same playlist in exactly the same way as the professionals, and that was how Siege was sold. As a casual player, you could go in and you were playing the exact same rule set, the exact same whatever it is, as the professionals were in competitive, and that was a big thing for me in terms of coming over to Siege. So to now see that being kind of almost more prevalent, in that we're seeing a wider range of operators being viable, it is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'd completely agree. As you say, for me, I just love the counters. Everything has its counter. Just counter, and it just goes on and on, because there's no two operators generally that just counter each other. So watching that change, and watching the players' minds at work of, right, now Frost's coming into it, so what do we do? And just watching it ever develop and change around that is always fascinating.
So, is there anything you still want to achieve within the Siege scene, or in your casting careers?
I mean, I'd like a T1 spot, but we'll see what happens with that. I don't know if that's going to be a thing or not.
Yeah, is the easy answer to that. It's like I've said, you get comfortable with what you're doing. It comes back to that saying that I said, if you're not nervous, you stood on the wrong stage, and that's not, it can't be applied literally 100% of the time, because like coming into LATAM, I was really nervous, and then you do 10 weeks of it and you get into a rhythm, you get used to it, and the nerves do drop away a little bit. So it's not to say that it can be applied 100% of the time, but you do always want those opportunities somewhere in the future that are going to stretch you, that are going to push you. And the thing is, you get that taste as well. You go in and you get a big job, a big opportunity. You go in and it is so. The thing is, like, and it sounds, I don't know, it sounds a bit contrived sometimes. Like I'm just, it's something to say because I'm involved in it. But genuinely, I just love this game. I just love. My passion for the game and for what I get to do in it is unreal. I sit down at the end of most days when I work and I just go, well, I can't believe that I'm being allowed to do it, that that's the opportunity I get. And so when you get to, those big moments, I sit down at the end of the day feeling like a rock star, and it's, you want that again and again. And so, you know, yeah, of course there's more to achieve. You know, of course there's more to do. There's bigger games. There's, you know, being in those special moments as well is, you know, is nice. I know we had the World Cup announced, and you know, I know that's had to be postponed, but those little things that are just a bit different. And you know, if you right place, right time, and you get the opportunity to be involved, then yeah, things like that are fantastic.
Well, yeah, and I think we're just about on that hour mark. So I'm just gonna kind of finish on if for example, if you could switch, because we had the question in chat earlier of other national leagues, because I know that you do UKIN, Ace, you do predominantly LATAM. If you could, you know, take let's say to a 2-week break to another region, so whether it's a national or whether it's a T1, which region would you like to swap to and why?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna go chill. I'm gonna go. I'll give you one of each. So if I was gonna, obviously I've done a lot of UKIN stuff as well. If I was gonna do another national league, I think I'd like to do the Spanish league, because their production is like amazing. Like they do a really, really great job on the production side. So yeah, I'd quite like to do a bit of the Spanish league. That'd be very interesting. As a whole region, to move away from LATAM, I think, you know, it's, for me, EU would be a dream, because I think there's just so much depth there in terms of quality. If I've got to be honest, we're sort of shifting a little bit at the minute. I still think the best teams in the world are currently in NA. I think Space Station are very, very good at the minute. But I know, and I'm very conscious, I don't want to talk over people like BDS and, you know, G2 are doing very well. We have those strong European teams, and I think they've made a bit of a resurgence from what we saw maybe back at SI 2020. I think the gulf was probably more pronounced at that point, and I think they have reeled them in a little bit. But I've said it for the last sort of 12 months or so that I think NA have got the best teams. I think EU have got the broadest quality of teams, the most depth. So yeah, being able to see, you know, game after game after game of absolute quality. You look at the list of EU teams now, you know, Koana, G2, you know, BDS. You can have all these throwdowns in, you know, Vitality coming in. Some of the player names that are in there are massive. You know, and you've got all this going on in 1 week. Every week is, yeah, that depth would be amazing to cover.
I think I probably agree with you, Tim. I from the Spanish league that I've seen, I think that would be quite exciting. Maybe to throw it out there and to just go and do something wild over in one of the APAC national leagues, and to see what's going on there and what the sort of quality is in and around that area. In terms of if it was going to be, you know, like one of the top 3 or top 4, I think I'd probably edge my way toward. See, it's very difficult because the week that I did on LATAM was probably the most fun that I've had casting Siege, and that's mainly just down to. It's quite difficult to put it into words, but just how explosive and exciting every round can be, and how much passion you can see being displayed. Sure, if you want to watch, you know, technical Siege, you can head over to, you know, NA and EU, and you've got good gun skill there. You've got everything that you need, but there's just that little bit of flair that you get over in LATAM, and I think that just sets it apart from the rest in that regard.
Yeah. That's absolutely great. And yeah, just bringing over that hour mark. Thank you both so much for being on. It's been a great cast here, especially with 4 of us here. It's been a really fluid, really great. And again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much, Santa, for joining me again. And thank you everyone for watching. It's been an absolutely great hour. We'll be back tomorrow with Jesgoat at, I think, 3 p.m. Don't quote me on that. The tweet will go out later tomorrow morning. But thank you guys so much. Thank you, Ace and Ollie, again. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.